So hello and welcome to Sao Paulo Airport in Brazil. Just arrived on a British Airways flight from London, which you can see covered here, and I'm about to fly on up to the northeastern coast of Brazil to Natal. Seems a bit daft to fly 4 hours across Brazil only to turn around and fly 4 hours back in the opposite direction, but BA only services Rio and Sao Paulo, so I didn't have a great deal of choice. Now, Brazil is a very interesting country, but it also has a very interesting aviation landscape, in that none of the airlines operating here are members of any of the big global alliances. Latam, who I'm flying with today, used to be in the One World Alliance, but when Delta took a shareholding in them a few years back, they left, and I haven't joined any of the other alliances after leaving One World. But when you look for flights here, all of the airlines are local Brazilian carriers that aren't members of global alliances. I've chosen Latam because I know about them, they're one of the biggest in the region, and they offered a convenient timed flight from Sao Paulo up to Natal. I'm flying with them today in their premium economy cabin, which is sort of what European airlines call business class, but Brazilian airlines seem to have a little bit more courage in not trying to bluff their consumers, hence Latam calling it premium economy. I'm not sure there's any catering provided, which would be another difference, but there is certainly a bit of extra legroom and a blocked seat next to me. So if you'd like to see the process of taking a domestic flight in Brazil, and you'd like to see what Latam Airlines is like on a 3 or 4 hour domestic flight, stick around! Hi, I'm Matt and this is Matt's Planet. I aim to entertain, educate and inspire with my travel adventures from planning to execution. I'll show you how you can travel in style for a lot less than you'd think. So subscribe so you can come with me. I flew out of Terminal 2 at Sao Paulo's Guarulhos Airport, having arrived into T3. It's a decent walk across, but it's all indoors so you avoid the worst of the heat and humidity. I'd stepped outside to record that intro. Not the best looking terminal you'll ever transit, but probably still better than Heathrow's Terminal 3. Latam let me check in 48 hours before the flight, so I had done so and printed off a boarding pass from home. As I was hand baggage only on this trip, I skipped the check-in desks and went straight to the security point. I've skipped ahead here, but it took over 4 minutes to walk the length of the terminal. Through the automated boarding pass check, which seemed to fox most of my fellow passengers, and through to security. I'd been warned about the security queues, and the tensor barrier acreage suggested that it gets a lot worse than I experienced, but I was pretty much straight through. No liquid restrictions on Brazilian domestic flights, I'll note. Quite a few shopping and food options when you're through security. As Latam isn't in an alliance, I didn't have access to a lounge through holding status with a partner airline. Neither did my premium economy ticket include lounge access. But I have both a Barclays Avios credit card and a Barclays Premier bank account. If you have either, you get a Dragon Pass membership which allows you to buy access to lounges. But if, like me, you have both, you get the membership with 4 free entries a year. That gave me the choice between a Plaza Premium and Gol Lounge, but as the latter was better rated and had free showers, I headed there. And despite actually flying on one of Gol Airlines' competitors, I was warmly welcomed into the lounge. I can't immediately think of an instance where I've been welcomed into a competitor airline's lounge when flying. I had over 3 hours to wait for my flight, but there was no pushback on me entering straight away. It was a nice looking lounge, heavily featuring Gol's corporate orange colour. I headed straight for the showers though, as I just got off an 11-hour overnight flight and felt a public obligation to do so. I hope that mirror's distorting my head, as this angle really shows off how bald I am and makes me look a little bit like the alien. Anywho, the shower was nice enough and did the job. Refreshed and back in general circulation, and the lounge certainly looked nice, but closer inspection showed that things were a little dated. Plenty of seating though, and it never felt busy when I was there. And there was a substantial buffet. I was quite impressed with the food offering. This was breakfast, and there was a very wide range of things to eat, including a lot of cake, which I believe is a typical Brazilian breakfast. There was also a small bar offering a few beers and spirit options, although it was still quite early and I didn't film it. Decent apron views too. I mean, what's not to like? Good Wi-Fi, so I caught up on the episode of The Traitors I'd missed in flight, and time flew past. Off to the gate, but first I played the departure board game, How Many of the Destinations Have I Visited? As this was my first time in Brazil and this was a domestic terminal, I scored a big fat 0. The gate was quite busy, but although everything was announced in Portuguese, it was easy enough to work out the boarding process. My boarding pass plonked me in Group 2, and once those who self-declared as needing extra assistance and the one person who'd been allocated to Group 1 had passed, it was our turn. And Latam distinguished itself by not calling people forward so early you ended up boarding not boarding. This was an acceptable buffer as those with limited mobility boarded. This was an Airbus A321 and unusually I didn't note the tail number, but I think the plane was around 8 years old. Only 2 rows of premium economy today, although the curtain had been set behind row 3. More on that later. For the first time in years I hadn't been able to select a window seat, but the passenger in 2F was happy enough to swap seats. In the end, as she was in a group of 3, they chose to ignore the empty middle seat benefit of premium economy and sat 3 abreast, which gave me a mini row to myself. "32 inches of legroom, I believe, with a tray table. Nothing flashy or gimmicky, but very comfortable for this flight, which was actually a little shorter than I expected, coming in at just under 3 hours long. And the blocked middle seat. Overhead you could find lights and air vents, which were very welcome on this humid day. Plus a universal power socket and 2 USB ports. It really was a decent setup. And it got even better as a bottle of water was distributed as a pre-departure beverage. Wi-Fi was also offered and it worked well, free messaging and about £4 for broader access to the internet. There was also entertainment and a moving map, which was pretty cool. There were a decent range of films and TV available, and when your expectations have been set by European airlines, it was all really rather good. We pushed back on time, another bonus point to Latam for that, and after a shortish taxi we were off into a partly cloudy Sao Paulo sky. About 20 minutes into the flight, a trolley duly appeared for the premium economy cabin. As I said in the intro, I wasn't certain what service I'd receive, so this was a welcome sign. I'll mention here that the 2 crew members I interacted with both spoke excellent English, so I was easily able to pick the chicken sandwich over the veggie one, served with some chips and an Eisenbahn beer. Not perhaps a lavish spread, but quite satisfying nevertheless. Cheers! And I was able to snag a second beer too. You'll notice the curtain behind me. The 3rd row was served through the curtain by the regular economy trolley. I didn't see what they got, but whatever it was less substantial than what I got. It was a little odd and perhaps a little awkward that the curtain hadn't been nudged forward another row. An A321 loo, not the biggest sky loo you'll ever come across, as we've seen in previous A321 videos. Brazil is a big country, much greener than I perhaps expected, but it was fairly flat and featureless for most of the trip. And close to 3 hours after takeoff, we descended into Natal. When I first looked to book this trip, it priced up something like this, a very reasonable fare for a trip in economy and a relatively modest increment to get into this premium economy cabin, well worth the extra cost in my opinion. But as I explained in this video, I held off from booking the flight as I wasn't certain I would be able to travel. When I was clear to travel and bought this ticket, it cost me £202. Still a reasonable price for the experience I received. Wait for it, lads. Wait. Go! And off the plane into Natal Airport, which was really nice. It opened in 2014, just in time for the World Cup, when I think 4 games were played in the city. Arrivals and departures were commingled, which allowed us to access the duty-free shop. Indeed, you had to pass through it to exit. I didn't linger to study the pricing, but I'd seen a duty-free shop in the domestic departure terminal in Sao Paulo, and the prices were very high. Defino, I think. Duty-free in name only. So Latam. I really liked them, and spoiler alert for next week's video, they were much better than GOL. Premium economy is probably the right name for LATAM's offering. It wasn't quite a business class offering, but then again, many of the products that are sold under that name on European carriers aren't business class offerings either. If LATAM's food and drink had been just a little bit better on this 3-ish hour flight, then alongside the flexibility of the ticket, the legroom, the in-flight entertainment and the quality of service, LATAM would be offering something that makes a mockery of those so-called business classes in Europe, whatever they chose to call the cabin. No formalities to clear, so quickly out to be met by my mate Steve, my guide for the next few days I'll show more of in an upcoming video. So thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. Please give the video a like if you did and leave me a comment. Have you flown domestically in Brazil? Please subscribe if you're new, and if you'd like to support what I'm doing more directly, there's a Patreon account, link in the description below. So thanks again for watching and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.